Hey guys, welcome to another episode of El Jefe's Drop Shop. This week we're going to make these 2020 Honda Odyssey seats work. So I'm going to start this episode off with a technicality. These seats are for my Leyland truck. I haven't started that project. I've been super keen to. I'm technically starting it now because I'm going to work out the seats. So I just picked these up from a wrecking yard. They popped up pretty reasonably priced and I just want to see them work. So if you'd like to put 2020 Honda Odyssey seats in your project, let's go on an adventure and work out this wiring. Alright, so before I start, I just want to say that if you are trying to find some seats for your project car and you want something pretty luxury, pretty comfortable, Honda Odyssey seats are a little bit wider and they have an armrest and they come in full leather and full electric. Excellent. Heated seats as well. Let's get it all working. Alright, so here's what I'm working with today. So these are 2020 Honda Odyssey full leather, full electric seats. So they only have 15,000 kilometers on them, which means they will have minimal butt sweat. So that's super nice. So I'm going to put these into the truck once the Leyland cab is on the truck and put these in a Leyland cab. So plan is to swap them left to right, so the driver's side will end up with an external armrest, so on the outside of the truck, I guess, and then same with the other side, so that I can build a center console and you'll have dual armrests, and that way we can have the seatbelts coming from the middle, which is better because the truck doesn't actually have a pillar for the seatbelt to mount to. So the main thing that I want to do for now is get the wiring working. Let's chuck one of these on the back of the toy waste and I will start looking at the wiring and I'll show you how to decode the looms for these things. Alright, so I've got the passenger seat here flipped upside down. So I just realized I can actually unbolt these mounts so that the rails themselves will stay with the seats, but the mounts to adapt to the car will come off. So I imagine what Honda did in their wisdom, which is actually a really good idea, is made these pretty universal and then just make the mounts to suit the car rather than the whole like rail and seat. So I'm going to rip those off and then I'll jump into this wiring. Alright, that made my life a whole lot easier. Those brackets just come straight off, easy as just undoing the bolts, which is excellent. So now the new rail system that I want to make will be tons easier. I just have to drill some holes in some RHS. So that's wicked. So now I'm going to jump into this wiring. So I know that the yellow one is airbags because the yellow is always airbags. So I'm going to delete all that, or at least undo it all. And I'm just going to unpick some of these zip ties and just get it down as much as I can so I can show you guys what I'm working with. Alright, so that's the airbag wiring out of the way. So there is still some down here obviously, but they pretty much just connect the car wiring loom to the actual airbag, and this is the actual airbag which is in the side rest of the seat. So I'll just get that out of the way for now. I have undone the elastic, which is this little flap guy, so that just hides all the wiring and makes it all look nice when it's down here. So get that out of the way. In a minute I will undo the rest of this and unzip the back of the seat and move that wiring entirely. For now what I'm going to do is just try and de-pin this plug and work out which wire does what. Unfortunately I did break this connector slightly when I was pulling the airbag section off of it. However, I do have the car section of the plug and it does still clip in, which is nice. So worst case I can wrap that in a bit of tape or whatever if it is loose later. But for now I'll just strip the end of this wiring and use it to pin this guy out, work out what all these motors do and see what functions we have for a passenger side. So with my prior knowledge and experience on these seats, which was me playing with another one, I know that those two wires there, so the blue and orange wire and the two black beneath it, I know that these are the positive and these are the negative for the controls, which are on the other side. For the controls, so everything that these control is controlled with those four wires, so that's super handy to know. And then I know that these relays here are for controlling the high and low temperature for the seat warmers. So I know that a lot of those wire colors match up with a lot of these colors. So I haven't dived into the wiring here yet, but I do know that this stuff should
control these guys, which control most of the seat. So I'll set you guys up on the tripod and I'll chuck some power on those two and we'll see how we go. Alright, so I'm going to start by just bending these wires over slightly, making them a little bit thicker, and chuck them in the terminals on the battery pack that I've got here. Then we'll see how the seat functions. Alright, so that's set up. So we should have forwards and backwards, which will be this guy to move. So forwards. Obviously the seat is moving forwards from the base, not the base moving forwards. Go backwards, which is sweet. No up and down on this passenger side, which is a little bit annoying because I wanted to swap them side to side. So I may have to try and swap the back of the seat over and leave the bases on the correct sides of the car. So that's going to be tricky, but we'll work that out later. Then we've got forwards and backwards for recline, which is pretty good. So that's all we've got on this seat is those functions for this guy. All right, so the next thing to do is to work out the heated seats. So it's a little tricky to show you, obviously, because the wiring is right up in here. So what I'm going to do is try and follow some of these wires, match some of these colors to the relays, and we'll try and go from there. All right, nothing seems to be probing as I would like, so I'm going to just ripple this tape and conduit off, see what color wires go where, and work my way through this slightly more caveman approach, but I'll know what actually is going on. So I'm going to keep stripping this wire back, just see what's going on in this little clump here, and then hopefully not have to pull all of that apart, because that'll be a pain. I'm getting there. That was a coincidence, but the airbag wiring is now deleted, so now the only thing that's left that has yellow on it is the guy that's here, that runs up into the base of the seat, so I'm assuming that's a pressure sensor, and then this guy here. So I know that this one here is probably actually the heated seat itself, because it does come straight from what looks like this plug and also the bottom half. So whether the bottom half has a heated seat in it as well, we will find out, but there would be this wire here which goes to the back half, and then this wire here which goes to the bottom half, both of which run into the heated seat section, and then the bottom section goes away. So this is probably the what's it called, the like someone sitting in it sensor, and then these two, which is this one and the back one there, are the heated seats. So that was probably very confusing, but I'll try and clear it up as I go. Another thing to note is that I've got down to the relays, and there's 4 wires in, 3 wires out. So there's 4 wires that go down to the plug to the car, which is this bit here. So I know that I need to put power and triggers there, so I'll work this out and get back to you. Alright, so I've traced those wires back. So these 4 here are for the actual motors controlling, and then these 4 here are for the relays. So they go to these relays here, which will turn the heated seat on and off. So then I'm assuming that these ones over here are for the, if someone's sitting in it, and probably the seat belt. So I'll deal with those in a minute. I'm just going to try and add some power to these and see how we can go with that. So we're going to have a main earth, we're going to have a main power for your relays, and then I assume a power to turn one relay on and a power to turn the other relay on. So let's give that a go. And then one of these should trigger a relay, which hopefully you can hear by the ticking, and then this should power the other relay, which you can hear the ticking. So now I just need to check and make sure that it is 2 different relays and not the same relay clicking on and off. So I'll just pull the big relay out, that should tell me which one's which. So it seems like the green one is the big one, and the red one still ticks, so I'm assuming that's the little one. Alright, so I've narrowed it down to 4 wires, which I have worked out what they will do. So these 2 here are for the occupancy sensor, which is the one that tells you if someone is sitting in the seat, usually for a beeper in the dashboard or whatever, and also to set the airbags off if someone is sitting in that seat. So I probably will use the driver's side one of those because I do need it for the truck. Actually, I think the passenger side has it as well, so I may end up using those. And then the other 2 here are for the belt buckle, so the seat half of the belt buckle, which I can't get to work at all. So I'm wondering if the pre-tensioners in the seat belts actually ruined that buckle. If that's the case, I'll need a new one, but that is the option for now, so that's what those 2 to do. So that is the wiring for the seat worked out. Let's wrap it back up and move on to the other one. Alright, so I got all that tidy back up. I used a bit of cloth tape, redid all of this. Okay, made sure there was enough slack here for the motor to move full extensions, and then obviously a bit of cloth tape there for that guy as well. So now what I need to do is I'm going to chase the back and chase up that airbag wiring, and also see if I can take the backrest off. I'm not too sure, but we'll see how we go there, and then go to the other seat and do the same thing. Alright, so just to dive a little deeper here, what I've done is undone the back of the seat. So now what I want to do is find the edge of the zip. So these seats are super easy to pull apart. You just need to grab that zip, run it all the way up the front, find the zip on the other side. If you have a paper clip, put the paper clip through the zip and then it's really easy. There we go. And then there's your seat back. So then undo this airbag wiring, which I don't want, and then that should go into the side of the seat without the armrest, because that's where the airbag is. So the airbag's just here, and that's where the wiring runs to. So that's pretty easy. Alright, so just quickly before I move on with this section, I rang the guys at Honda and asked about the buckle and whether or not that being broken would have anything to do with the crash that these seats were in. He's not 100% sure, but they are $100 to replace them, so $100 a seat. So I may do that down the line, but I don't need to do it right this second. So I'm going to move on to the airbag wiring and tuck all that away. Probably should delete it, but I'll just tuck it away. At this stage, I'll be putting the passenger seat on the driver's side and the driver's seat on the passenger side, losing some controls on the driver's seat. But I can fix what I lose there in the actual tilt of the mounts, because I will be the main one driving this thing, obviously. So if someone else doesn't like my driving position, that's on them. That's not my problem. So I'll zip all this back up and I'll do the wiring on the other seat. All right, there we have the seat all buttoned up, got the wiring exposed and depinned. So it's all back together, and the seat mounts are off, but the rails are still there, which is excellent. So let's see what we can do with the other seat, the driver's seat. All right, well, this looks very much the same. Should be able to unbolt the seat mounts pretty easily and take the plastics off. Then I'll have to dig out the wiring and remove that airbag wire now that I've done it to the other one. Got to do it to this one. And then I'll just check that the pins line up and all match. Let's get into it. And there we go. So deleted the airbag wiring, trimmed everything up and tested all these guys. There is no occupancy sensor on the driver's seat, which is pretty standard, I think, because you're going to have a driver if you have an accident, and that's all they use it for. And beeping at you. So if the driver's seatbelt isn't plugged in, it's going to beep at you. That's pretty much as easy as it gets. So all of this works, everything's all sweet. The heated section works the same, so I'm just going to leave those for now. So while I've got these on the ground, it's an interesting point of view. That's as wide as I can go in the truck. So a lot of people would have thought that I was going to put a bench seat in the truck. I would like to, but that's literally how much room I have. So the outside of the current two seats in the truck is actually 10 centimeters narrower than that. So there is no room, which means if I were to bolt them in like this, the armrest would be on the outside, the controls would be on the inside, and the seat belts would come from the inside and go out, which I don't think is a problem, other than the fact that I can't adjust the tilt of the driver's seat. But like I said before, I can make up for that in the mounts.
Okay, and as you can see, that came along pretty well. It only took me probably 2 hours to pull the seats apart, de-pin everything, work all the wires out, tidy it all back up, and get them back together. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next week.